Another day, another data breach, but we shouldn't be treating data breaches like a laissez-faire event that they just happen all the time and my data's already leaked out there. We should be treating every single data breach as if we just had walked in on our parents doing the nasty, the vertical mumbo, or the horizontal mumbo, depending on how you caught them in. There's a lot of therapy involved with that story. Anyway, we're going to be talking about a breach that, in my opinion, was worse than the National Public Data breach, which had 2.9 billion records leaked. And that was bad enough as it was. I've talked about that before, where now, for the first time, people were able to search up a lot of different people. I think the number has officially become about 250, 260 million Americans. Social security numbers, prior addresses, known associates, email addresses, and everything in a publicly searchable database. And this has never really been done before. Even when Equifax was breached before, they had social security numbers and all that, it was never really in a public fashion. This became public. Well, the city of Columbus, in my opinion, had an even worse breach, and the handling of it is really bad and proves why we need to have a significant shift in how we approach cybersecurity, and most of the issue comes down to the humans interacting with our systems every day. We need to have constant training regimens because you will be shocked about how I, as a cybersecurity engineer, have been able to social engineer information out of a lot of our people every day and get them to click on things that they shouldn't, as well as the engineers behind these systems, well, more so the architects, because the engineers are just doing the bidding of the architects, are not architecting the systems appropriately to secure their systems. So the city of Columbus, Ohio, had a breach, and this breach was really bad. It even leaked, apparently, information about confidential informants. So this actually started unfolding on July 18th. We're going to read the timeline over here. This is brought to you by 10 TV News. There's also NBC4 and a few others that have been covering this, like ABC6. But there are currently 2 different class action lawsuits against the city seeking information and asking the city to adopt sufficient security practices and safeguards to prevent incidents like data breaches. This is how it reads from 10 TV. The city is now offering free credit monitoring for affected residents through Experian. 2 years of credit monitoring ain't anything but more than a Band-Aid when it comes to these situations. So here is the current timeline as 10 TV outlines, is that the breach was first reported on July 22nd after Columbus Mayor Andrew Ginther's office released a statement saying the city's Department of Technology found an evidence of an abnormality in its system on July 18th. A little bit vague there, buddy. As a result, the city severed internet connection to reduce the threat to the city's systems. Reasonable approach. Wish you had a little bit better mitigations. We'll get to that a little later. Nearly 2 weeks after Ginther unplugged the city from the internet, 2 officers with the Columbus Division of Police came forward on July 31st saying their bank accounts were hacked. Police officers. Regardless of what your position may be on police, that's still no bueno. They're city employees doing their job. The 2 sources said an unspecified amount of money was taken from the accounts. The mayor's office did not comment at the time, but said it's aware of the reports. But this goes back again to where I had the video talking about. You should not be using the same passwords. You should be monitoring a lot of these different things. You should have multi-factor authentication. That video can help protect against these kind of issues if your information does get leaked. Not saying this is on the officers. I'm saying this could have been helped to be prevented, but their information shouldn't have been out there in the first place. And we'll get into the fact that I don't believe that social security numbers and a lot of this information that we have that is archaic should be identifying factors. And the United States needs to adopt better approaches federally to prevent our data from being used in the way that it did. Racidia demands nearly $2 million in ransom for 6.5 terabytes of stolen city data. On August 1st, a hacker group came forward with claiming responsibility for the attack and demanding nearly $2 million in ransom for the data. The hacker group released screen captures of data to prove that they have the city's sensitive data. It shows security camera footage and dispatching information, along with tables of employee data they claim to have. So far, at this point, it appeared that Columbus police employees' information was the most at risk. The people working for the government that's supposed to protect us, were having their people most affected. Many Columbus police officers closed out their current banking accounts and asked the city to pay them by paper check instead of direct deposit to secure their new accounts. Then, on August 2nd, Ginther's office confirmed earlier that week that a foreign cyber threat actor attempted to disrupt the city's IT infrastructure to deploy ransomware and solicit a ransom payment from the city. Residia posts 45% of the city's data on the dark web around August 7th after holding the city's data for ransom. They had threatened to release more if the city didn't pay the ransom by the following morning. However, Ginther's office said there is no evidence the data has been published. Buddy. Now, of course, don't pay ransoms, but don't make claims like that. That is basically challenge accepted. Ginther's office confirmed they are aware of the claims that data has been published and added the links are broken, but would not comment any further about possible negotiations. The first class action lawsuit was filed on August 9th against the city of Columbus, alleging that the city failed to protect highly sensitive data. The lawsuit was later amended to include any resident who was affected by the breach. So, this didn't affect just employees, just so you know, it affected residents, confidential informants, and a whole bunch of things. This upends the trust and faith that people have in government, if you have any, that is, to begin with. Mayor Ginther said, majority of stolen data is totally unusable. Ginther provided an update on the city's ongoing battle with the cyber attack on August 13th, saying the data stolen by hackers were either corrupted or encrypted, meaning it was likely useless. If your data was corrupted, what were your data management practices like? Were you actually checking your data and things like that? That actually makes me have more questions about the city's storage of data, not just the secure storage of it, the labeling, the backups, all that. But are you actively checking the integrity of your data? According to a fact sheet published by the city Tuesday, the data posted to the dark web by ransomware group Ricida, however you pronounce that, contained corrupted and encrypted information from city backup files. So it looks like at this point it was from city backups, which is something that a lot of companies and individuals, as well as apparently government corporations, yes, they are a corporation, overlook, is the security of your data backups. Now, what intrigues me is how were they backing it up? What were these data centers like? What were the policies with these data centers? Who were the stewards of the data? Who were the custodians? And what were the policies and procedures? These are a lot of things that we have to start asking the questions of, not just of government, but how we approach cybersecurity as a whole. And a lot of these things are being covered actually in the exam that I'm taking for CISSP soon. So a cybersecurity expert revealed to the news what personal information was available in the dark web later that day. Apparently this was on August 13th. And cybersecurity expert Connor Goodwolf, which is a name he chose for the interview and is not his legal name, said anyone who swiped their driver's license at City Hall in the last 10 years could be on the dark web. You just visited City Hall. You came in for a class trip just to see how government works, and you see how incompetent government is working to protect your data. Because the problem is a lot of the people that run the government and run these data practices, and security practices, they're boomers. They don't know how technology works. The fact that I even have to fight with my own family about how they need to store their own data because things, can go bump in the night, even when I talk to them and I say, do not put this information anywhere on a digital device. And they go ahead and do it. I know people that actually store passwords in contact management systems. You shouldn't be doing that. Not even a password-protected Excel file. Get a password manager. I digress. 10 years. He said the leaked data also included anyone who has dealt with the Columbus City's attorney prosecuting office in any way, including victims, suspects, or someone who was subpoenaed by the court of law or law enforcement. So imagine all those people that are in highly sensitive cases right now, that are having their lives already upended because they happen to be in some kind of a criminal endeavor that they're being protected from, now have to upend their lives again because that information is now compromised because the government did not manage their data appropriately. The mayor said that he didn't lie, apparently. When the 10 TV apparently asked Ginther if he lied about the extent of knowledge of the information that had been leaked, he gave a resounding no. I shared the best information I had at the time based on reports and confirmation from cybersecurity experts. Obviously, what we have learned since then is continuing on our investigation and what is possibly out there. Who has access to it? He needs to get a better course in PR then. City expands free credit monitoring to residents. On August 16th, the city expanded the free credit monitoring to all residents impacted by the cyber attack. You know, I'm tired of the answer of being, you know what, you got compromised. Free credit monitoring. Free credit monitoring. Bro, we've been getting free credit monitoring offers since Equifax themselves got compromised, and I'm sick and tired of it. Maybe the United States government should actually take some proactive measures to stop this kind of thing. Europe has GDPR. That prevents this amount of data from being used in the way that it is. We need to have more cautious and cognizant control around how we are managing all of this sensitive data. Instead of just saying, well, it's out there, and stop being so laissez-faire, like I said. Treat it like, you know, you just walked in on your parents doing the vertical or horizontal mumbo, depending on how much your trauma played out in therapy. There's a lot of story behind that. Ginther admits for the first time that citizens' information was exposed. So this was almost, what are we talking? July 18th. So a whole month later, we figure out that citizens had their information exposed. More than 2 weeks after the hacker group demanded a ransom, Ginther confirmed that personally identifiable information was leaked on the dark web. He also confirmed that data, such as information on criminals, victims of crimes, and witnesses from the city prosecutor's office was leaked. Ginther added that more personal information may have been accessed and could be published on the dark web. Now, a second city database was hacked on August 19th. A second city database. Jesus. This included thousands of incident reports from the Columbus Division of Fire, wow words, and information from people who visited any of the 4 buildings since 2006. City Hall, 77 North Front Street, 111 North Front Street, or the Beacon Building. Lovely. And then, of course, we had a second class action lawsuit against the city. Representing both city police and firefighters, the new lawsuits explain the financial impacts to just a few first responders. The lawsuit asks the city to fully and accurately disclose the nature of the information that has been compromised and to adopt sufficient security practices and safeguards to prevent incidents like the data breach described here in the future. That is the information that we have so far. Yeah, I'm bound to agree with the second lawsuit here. Not only that, it seems like to me they may have, if I'm not reading this wrong, run afoul of Ohio's own breach disclosure laws. Not only that, Ginther is really bad at PR. Bro, really? And 2 years of free credit monitoring, what's that gonna do? Oh, yeah, your account's been breached. Oh, yeah, something's been filed. Once again, I've been recommending people, I don't care if you've been breached or not, freeze your credit. Freeze all 3 accounts of your credit. Get a password manager. Set up multi-factor authentication for all of your accounts. And start monitoring everything very, very vigorously. You should always, I check my bank accounts at least once a day. Check to make sure there's nothing weird on there. I think the worst that I've had in the past few years is I had an erroneous charge for CatholicSingles.com, which is hilarious, if you know me, because I went to the bank, and they said, how do we know this isn't you? And I'm like, well, I'm Jewish, and I'm kind of over my Catholic girl phase. Yeah, bad joke. I know. But it was a few years ago. There's a lot more that needs to be done in terms of cybersecurity. Now, the interesting thing is that apparently I've been reading reports that this has also happened as a result of employees clicking on files. This goes into the fact that we need to have better security training, and it needs to be regular security training for all employees everywhere. The amount of times that I deal with people that they are not up to speed on, you know, you shouldn't give information out as much. You should be very cautious of the people on the phone. What social engineering is and all that is just astounding. And government is always behind in terms of the private sector when it comes to a lot of these things. And this is no different. So don't treat this as just, oh, another data breach. My data's already out there. Treat this like you just walked in on your parents doing the nasty. Have that reaction of, oh, God! Oh, God! No! The horror! And raise that tone also to your politicians. Maybe we can finally get some equivalencies to the GDPR, maybe we can actually stop using Social Security numbers as an identification factor in this country. Social Security numbers were never meant to actually be an identification factor. Why are we still using them as an identification factor? I mean, you have military people that were getting their stuff compromised for years because you look at their dog tags for years. What happened? Their dog tags have their Social Security number. The United States government and the state governments and the local governments have never taken security really that seriously. But they want to honestly make arguments about how the FBI should have a backdoor into our cell phone. These mitigations and protections that Apple and other companies have to encrypt our data and protect our data, and the argument that they have is to stop criminals, don't just stop criminals. They stop, they stop the government as well. They've never taken our security and privacy that seriously. They continuously make arguments at the FBI at the national level about how they should have backdoor access to our iPhones and all of our devices, and that encryption is allowing criminals to prevail, without realizing these same things protect everyday citizens from having their information disclosed so that we don't become victims to even greater crimes. What is the greater crime? That the United States government is more worried about getting backdoor access to all of our stuff to possibly go after criminals, or allow the entirety of the United States citizenry to be a perpetual victim at the mercy of the rest of the world because our government wants to go after a few criminals? Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't go after criminals. What I'm saying is that we are talking about a very small minority of the United States population that happens to be criminals. And we want to allow the United States to be victimized continuously because law enforcement has to do their job. You have to innovate better. You have to do surveillance and stuff better to catch these criminals. And that shouldn't come at the price of the average United States citizen's privacy and security when it comes to their financial or otherwise, because you don't want to have an easy route. No, you will not get a backdoor to my device. You will not allow encryption standards like FIPS 185 to ever come again with escrowed key communication. If you don't know what that is, go look that up in the 1990s when Hillary Clinton and other people wanted to have escrowed key communications, that any encrypted device was then given an escrowed key so that you could have immediate backdoor access by the United States government or other covered entities, just so that we could have a repeat of what happened with the NSA getting into access to private communications and basically just jerking off to material of what people were considering private. Not a joke. This was an actual thing that happened. And this is unfortunately what happens a lot of times when we have unfettered access with secret courts and things like that happen. We need to have the United States citizens protected properly, not seen as collateral damage in the course of an investigation because we could have protected the United States citizen better, but we want to track some criminals down. I get it. There's always going to be bad guys. Yes, we should go after them. We should go after all kinds of criminals, financial, whether they're going after children, whether they're, any kind, murder, whatever. I don't care. You name it. But that should not come at the expense of my safety, your children's safety, or anyone else, so that we can't have a private conversation without the risk of that information getting leaked out. I mean, now you have kids going basically to City Hall with their parents, going to see how government works, then realizing government works by screwing you over, by allowing your data to get released because they have incompetent data practices and they don't take your data seriously. Why is it the city of Columbus in Ohio didn't have proper data security in place and data security in place? Why were these measures not taken appropriately beforehand? Why is there probably not a good amount of cybersecurity training at every single level like I have come to expect when I work at different companies? That's my 2 cents. This, in my opinion, is a little bit worse than a national public data breach, which is already one of the worst data breaches that we've had because that information is public and then, stalkers can now have access to do worse things and everything. But I digress. Start treating data breaches like you just walked in on your parents doing the nasty. And start telling our politicians that we need changes to how we handle our data nationwide, how we can better protect our data, as well as we need to make changes to the Social Security system to stop being used as an identification system. That is first and foremost. Well, a bunch of these things are not first and foremost. They're all equally important. We need GDPR equivalencies. We need to stop using social security numbers as an identification. We need to have more safe and secure methods to protect our privacy and our information, because this is affecting police, this is affecting firefighters, this is affecting confidential informants, victims, this is affecting everyone, residents of the city. Who's to say one day taxes won't be breached? Although if they do, could you just make it so that we don't have to pay taxes? Because at this point, if we're dealing with an incompetent government that doesn't even fix potholes, what's the point in paying taxes? I'm not saying we shouldn't pay taxes. I'm saying, what's the point in paying taxes? Let me get that clear out there. But also, one day, maybe, they'll get into our student loans and they'll just wipe it clean. Please and thank you. Not advocating for that, just saying that would be a really nice thing to wake up and not have student loans for a bunch of people, because I know that's basically crushing a bunch of us, because the United States, again, doesn't care about the United States citizenry and our well-being and our future, just to see how we can extract more money out of us. And if you don't believe that, all these data brokers, why do they exist? Because they're buying and selling data, and they got lobbyists themselves to go to the government to say, no, we need to be allowed to buy and sell your data. No, you shouldn't. You should be protecting me. You, the United States government. You're there to protect and serve me, not the corporation that wants to make a buck off me. Thank you all for watching my video and my little rant today, and please like and subscribe if you want to see some more as well. Check out all of my social media down below, and be safe out there. The internet can be a scary place. You're going to need this YubiKey. See y'all later. Stay safe.